So today we're talking about the idea that if we want change to happen in our lives, then we actually have to change something. And this seems obvious, right? But it's interesting how resistant we often are to change. Even if we don't like certain aspects about our lives, it's almost like we would like, it's almost like we want things to change, but I don't actually want to change anything kind of inside, or I don't want to change anything in my life. I don't want to change what I'm eating. I don't want to change whether I'm exercising or moving. I don't want to change how I react to people. I don't really want to change anything, and yet I really want change. And you know how it's interesting how they talk about how we all create our own reality? And we find that hard to believe sometimes. It's almost like we've been conditioned, very likely through our upbringing, that everyone else creates our reality. When we were growing up, our parents created a lot of our reality, right? They created the home, the environment, what was possible, our itineraries, like whatever. Then we went to school, and the majority of our waking hours were programmed and scheduled by others. And then we become an air quote adult, and we start working full time, and our days are coordinated that way, And so then someone comes along and says, but you are the creator of your reality, and you create your life. And you're looking at them like, not my life. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot of other people determining my life. But this is where it's really interesting. Because when we make even very small changes in our lives, everything changes. I've told lots of you guys this story. Years ago, I moved to a little town called Stratford, which is an hour from here. And I didn't know anyone, not a soul. So I thought, well, I love classical music. Maybe I will volunteer for the local symphony orchestra. And, I'll stand and hand out pamphlets and tell people where the bathrooms are, right? To me, that was getting me out of the house, and I'm sure I would rub shoulders with cool people and who knows, right? Well, I ended up volunteering, getting to know everybody there, super nice people. I end up sitting at one of their homes one night for dinner. We were actually having a marketing meeting, but we were having dinner, and this one woman who's like this super marketing maven, like just all of the jargon of the marketing world that was really quite beyond me. And she's talking about this, how we have to improve our bench strength, and I don't even know. I can't even repeat it. And then all of a sudden she just stops, stares at me, and says, "Katrina, you know what your biggest problem is?" I said, "What?" She said, "You think you're a settler, but you're actually a gypsy." And then she just continued with the conversation about marketing. And I sat there like, what? So then I went home and I really started thinking about this. And I was like, is that true? And of course, the funny thing is, when I really started thinking back in my life, when I was in high school, I had great dreams of traveling the world with a backpack. I was going to learn all these languages, and I was going to travel to all these countries, and I was going to travel in a very light and easy way. But then I went away to university, and then I fell in love with a farmer. And I married a farmer, and I was a farm wife for the next 17 years. And so my world adjusted because of that decision, And so then now, this was maybe another 15 years later, or 30 years maybe after I made that decision to, hold on. I got married in 93, and I spoke to this woman in 2018. So whatever that math is. And here's me sitting there pondering, wow, what if I did become a gypsy? What would happen? And then all of a sudden it came to me, this message came. It was like, get rid of everything, get down to a backpack, and follow God. Travel wherever you're meant to go without any direct intention. So I did. I gave away everything, and within about 6 or 7 months, I was on a flight to Ireland to live with my daughter for a while, and I traveled for the next 2 years. All of that happened because I decided to volunteer for the symphony orchestra. Right? Just this tiny little weird choice. Right? It seems so innocuous. It seems so not interesting. But that tiny choice created an entirely different reality. If I hadn't done that, my life would have looked very differently. Or would look really different, right? And this is what I mean. Like we don't get, like if we actually kind of reverse engineer our life and we think, wow, if I hadn't made that one choice, all of these things wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't moved to this place, all of these people I never would have met. If I hadn't taken that job and taken that job instead, my life would have turned out completely differently. This is where every choice actually defines our life. Even as simply as which job do I take? Which person do I marry? How do I eat? Do I exercise? All these things change our life and completely create our life. So the idea of making small changes in our life right now literally create our life. Every tiny change. So it's a very interesting thing how much we push back against it. I have a good friend who's a doctor, a medical doctor. And I got to know him because he actually had read my book, What If You Could Skip the Cancer? And he approached me in a store one day and said, are you Katrina Boss? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I read your book, which was and he said, it's very interesting. And that coming from a medical doctor was really, really cool because it's not particularly pro-medicine. It's not against it, but it's definitely asking us to look at health very differently. And it turns out he actually was a very holistic person. He did a lot of yoga. He actually taught yoga for me when I owned my train station where I did a lot of teaching. And he was a runner and he was into, functional medicine. But he also was a classic medical doctor. You know, right now he's 100% an emergency doctor. And I remember one time, because he and I became really close, like we became really good friends. And I said to him one day, I said, why did you become a medical doctor? Why didn't you become a naturopath or a homeopath or something that seemed to be more in line with your lifestyle? You know, medicine's great when you need it, but it is a very small box, you know? And he says, the thing is, he said, 98% of a person's health is within their control. He said it's 4 things. What do you put in your body? What do you ask your physical body to digest? Right? Do you move your body? Do you actually allow your lymphatic system to flow? Do you actually allow your blood to flow? Do you get outside? Do you actually move your body? And how do you do it? The third one is, do you sleep? What is the quality of your sleep? Do you have decent sleep hygiene that you actually allow yourself true rest? And the fourth one was, do you handle stress? You know, or does your stress handle you? He said these 4 things determine the majority of our health. The other 2% or 5% or whatever, he said, you can go to a doctor or a naturopath or a homeopath or whatever you want, but most of your health is determined by you. And it's so interesting because, you know, I was reading a book by Dr. Thomas Cowan, and he was talking about this, that, one of the greatest challenges in our lives is that we don't actually live like humans. We live like kind of strange robots, kind of living inside, literally like plugged into something electrical, and then we just go through our day in this very mechanistic way. He said, like, are we outside? Are we in the sunshine? Are we walking barefoot? Are we eating food that's grown near us? Are we laughing and smiling and living in community? Like, is that what we're doing? He said, because if we're not, we are going to have disease. Like, that's a natural thing, right? So it's a very interesting thing when we think of making changes in our lives, in any of those aspects. But the key is to make them small enough and make them forever. The reason we want to make them small is that we are organic beings. We are not mechanical. Sometimes we imagine that we're mechanical. So let's say I decide, I'm going to start drinking more water. Don't start drinking 8 glasses of water. The body doesn't know what to do with that. Just start drinking 1 glass of water a day or 2 glasses of water a day. And that tiny thing, if you think of yourself like a machine, you think, oh, well, so what? I'm adding water. I mean, how's that going to change everything? How's that going to change my struggle with my weight, too high, too low? How's it going to change my sleeping patterns? How's it going to change? Like, how's it going to change anything? Because again, we see ourselves like a machine, and the water goes into the water container and everything else is the same. But we're organic. Everything's connected. You make one change in one area and that change ripples throughout our whole being. And suddenly that extra fluid in the body changes our elimination. Right? It allows us to urinate better. It allows us to defecate better. And then all of a sudden, our intestines start working better. And because our intestines are working better, we start to feel better. And because we start to feel better, we start to, I'm just going to walk to my friend's place instead of driving. And then I do that. And then all of a sudden, my heart starts feeling better. And and all I did was drink 1 more glass of water a day. Like, we are organic beings, right? I think I told you guys the story of, there was this meteorologist named Edward Lorenz back in it must have been the 50s. I'm not sure when, but it was back when computers, like mainframes, were still cards. So we're going back a little bit. So he was a meteorologist, and they were trying to figure out how to anticipate storms, especially hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that. So they would create a program that simulated a certain kind of topography, like there's a mountain here and there's a lake here and then there's a plain here and this is what it's going on. Then they had 6 variables. They had wind speed, altitude, temperature, barometric pressure, 2 more, but there were 6 variables. And so what they would do is they would plug in 6 variables at the beginning of the program, and they would say, okay, let's say we start with the temperature is this, the barometric pressure is this, the wind speed is this, and they put that all in, and then they let the program run. So he puts the values in. He goes away to get a cup of coffee. He comes back, and in the simulation, a hurricane has happened. And he's like, whoa, this is awesome. We figured something out. Because the question is, like, how do we know to warn people, right, that there's a hurricane coming? So he goes back through the program, and of course, as the program's running, it's kicking out all the values of all these 6 variables, right? So at every minute, maybe, let's say, it's saying at minute 1, the temperature is this, the barometric pressure is this, and at minute 2, they're this, and at minute 3, it's going on. So he says, like, 5 minutes before the hurricane happened, what were the values? So he takes these values, plugs them back into the program, but the hurricane didn't happen. And they're like, and they tried and everything, and they looked for bugs in the cards and all that stuff. Couldn't figure out why the hurricane didn't happen. Then he realized that the printout with the values that he was using only went to 6 decimal places. Okay, so the temperature is 50.123456, right? So to what? 100,000th of a degree. And so, but in the computer, it stored the value to 10 decimal places. Changing the temperature by 1/1,000,000th of a degree changed whether the hurricane happened or not. This is an organic system. This is where everything is actually interrelated. This is how incredibly sensitive the system is that we're living within. We make one tiny change, it will affect everything. But the question is, what is our true trajectory? What is our true intention with our life, with our health? What is it? Is my true intention to be physically fit enough to go hiking, to walk anywhere I want, to jump on a bike and bike across town, to be able to get up and down off the floor without, grunting and groaning? Is that my goal, health-wise? Or do I even have one? Is my goal just to really get up, survive the day, and go back to bed? Like, what is my goal? And neither one is wrong, by the way. Like, this isn't like a judgment, like everyone should be perfectly fit or something, But the reality is, all we need to do is take one step towards the trajectory. And this is why it has to be a forever change. Would I be okay with drinking an extra glass of water every day for the rest of my life? Does that make sense? Does that make sense inside of me? And this is the danger often with 2-week diets or month diets and that kind of thing. Maybe they get us out of the woods, right? Maybe we have joint pain and we say, you know what? I'm going to stop eating wheat for a month. And in that month of that cleanse, we realize, wow, my joint pain's gone away. Apparently, wheat has something to do with it. Or maybe we give up sugar and we're like, wow, my mind is so clear. And so we do it for that month as an information month. And then at the end of that month, we make a real decision. Do I want to get rid of this completely out of my system? Do I want to do an 80-20 situation where most of the time sugar's not part of my diet, but yeah, if I go out with friends or on occasion or on a weekend, it's all fine. What do? What is my long-term trajectory here? What really makes sense? Because when we imagine that all these changes are something that I could happily do for the rest of my life, that's when you know it's going to be long-term change. It's almost like the body doesn't even believe us. If we just make a short-term change, we could just be going through a temporary famine. So no point changing everything for a temporary famine. But as soon as, and this is where it's interesting, when you do, let's say you choose to meditate, and you meditate every day for 10 minutes, right? No big deal. Just 10 minutes a day, I'm going to sit down, close my eyes, breathe deeply, allow my attention to be inside. Right? That's cool. And for the first few days, it's kind of uncomfortable and it's a little bit weird. And then after a few weeks, you're like, wow, I actually kind of look forward to it. And then somewhere around the 2 and 3 month area, you start to realize that you're actually seeing the world differently. As you walk through your life, you have this witness mind. And when somebody's mad at you or someone says something to you, You're kind of looking at them. It's almost like a Pavlov's dog. Instantly, you take a deep breath and you have the consciousness of you sitting on the mat. And then could you do this for the rest of your life? Probably. You'd probably enjoy it. And even if it's not official meditation, you might just be sitting on the porch. You might close your eyes and have a little power meditation. But it's nothing conscious because it's so natural to you to breathe deeply without needing to check your phone, without needing to talk to anyone. You just simply enjoy the quiet and the silence within. So it's a very interesting thing to imagine the tiny changes we can make for our whole lives. Especially in those areas. What do I eat? How do I move? Do I move? How often do I move? How am I sleeping? Even something like sleep. This is a massive deal. I've struggled with insomnia a lot in my life, and it hugely affects my day. Like, it's not a little thing. When we actually are able to sleep well, it's like the sun comes out the next day. If you've never struggled with insomnia, that's awesome. I wish you all the best sleeps forever. But if we've ever struggled getting up to go to the bathroom in the night, blah, 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 it is a really worthy thing to play with our sleep hygiene. Whether it's turning off screens, whether it's going for a nice walk before bed, but whatever it is, to imagine it as a lifelong habit. Not, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks and then I'm going to sleep. I'm going to do this because it really helps my body wind down. It's so worthwhile. And then stress, because we have really become accustomed to stress. We've normalized stress responses that, everybody's got something, right? Everybody has anxiety, everybody has depression, everybody struggles with something, everyone's got somebody in their life that makes them crazy, right? Or, everybody's marriage is like that. That's no big deal. Doesn't everyone's teenagers drive them crazy? Like, we have this normalization of being in a constant state of stress response. What if that's not true? What if we could actually have harmony in our relations, within ourselves? What if that was possible? And imagine that was your trajectory, that I actually believe that peace is possible. And then we just start making small steps and we ask ourselves, okay, what's one thing I could do on this journey? And maybe it's meditating 10 minutes a day. Maybe it's finding a counselor that you trust and talking to them once a month or something. Whatever it is that slowly gets you on the trajectory that you want to go in. And it literally is that, I don't know who said that quote, Joseph Campbell or something, that, once you actually start taking steps in the directions of your dream, the universe conspires to make it happen. It's really true. Sometimes it's really hard to make change. Like, we have these great ideas about change. But the problem is they come out of our head. And we don't listen to shakti. And so in the Hindu belief system, one God is Shiva Shakti. This is oneness. And in order to create reality, Shiva Shakti separated. Shiva remained as consciousness, and Shakti became manifest reality. So every one of us, regardless of gender, our manifest reality is Shakti. When we choose to make change, are we listening to Shakti? Are we forcing Shakti to do something because I have an idea that I like? Or instead, am I listening to Shakti? Like, personally, I have this obsession with barefoot running. Not that I barefoot run all the time. I used to. A long time ago, I used to barefoot run all the time. But I'm not actually built like a runner, which is why I love barefoot running, because it uses all the joints in a very lovely way. And every so often my brain says, okay, that's it. We're going to start doing our running regimen again. And it was funny, this morning I stood up and I went outside, and it's kind of cool here today. It's like 9 degrees Celsius. And I kind of stood there and I said, who wants to do this running, Katrina? Is it just an idea in your head? Or is your body calling for this kind of movement? Is it calling to run like that? And I had to really, and it's not an easy question because we play a lot of games. We play a lot of mind games with ourselves. Is it this? Is it that? Am I rebelling? Like, what is it, And in the end, I realized that's not the movement my body is asking for. My body is asking for movement, but not this kind of movement. And there is something about listening to our bodies when it comes to food, when it comes to movement, when it comes to sleep. How often do we stay up later than we want to? This, I believe, is one of the great challenges with screens. I mean, maybe there's electromagnetics and radiation and stuff that messes up our brain. That could be. I don't know anything officially about that. But what I find is if I'm reading a book, if I'm doing a crossword puzzle, if I'm just chit-chatting with someone, if I get tired, I go to bed. Right? I just, kind of tired. Yeah, I'm going to go to bed because I'm tired. I listen to that melatonin drop inside of my system that kind of goes, or that yawn, and I go to bed. But if we're scrolling on our phones, somehow we bypass that sleep desire. Or if we're watching Netflix and we're tired, but I'm just going to finish this one episode. And then that ends on a cliffhanger. It's like, okay, just one more. And I'm so tired. But it's almost like because I'm being driven from the outside, almost like, imagine, I don't know, somebody like driving horses or something, and someone else is deciding how far you're driving or how long you're running. So it's almost like the computer or the TV is saying, no, one more, even though inside you're so tired. So it's just an interesting thing. Like as soon as we don't have that external stimulation asking us, and they're so good at keeping us with them, right? If we don't have those screens, will we listen to our natural rhythms? Maybe it's nothing more interesting than that. What's interesting about ignoring Shakti is, again, this it comes out of this patriarchy, right? This domination paradigm we've lived in for millennia. Because what we do is we oppress the feminine. And I mean, lots of you guys have heard my talks on the masculine and feminine, but it's all things feminine. It's oppressing our intuition, our feelings, our mystery, the unknown, all those things, our wildness. But it's also, we oppress Shakti. We oppress our physical reality. We work harder than our bodies can. We drive longer than we can. We eat more than we should. We eat less than we should. We oppress, we just control this physical body, and we ignore the signs within it. And there's something about it that I think actually sets up a rebellion inside of her, all genders, right? That as soon as that oppressive brain, AKA masculine government, teachers, authority, whatever, say, you're going to go on a diet and lose 50 pounds. You're going to start doing this thing. You're going to do this no matter how tired you are or whatever. It's almost like our Shakti says, no, right? And we suddenly become this, teenager that's going, I'm not doing anything. Arms crossed. You know what? Great plan you made there, but I'm not doing it. Right? Because we're literally ignoring reality. And then this is a real thing, that we create these ideas in our head that this is my ideal life, this is the perfect thing, this is who I want to be, as opposed to who I am. So there's a very gentle journey with connecting to our own shakti, connecting to our manifest reality. What is my body calling for now? The number of times that I will be feeling very heavy or almost like my body can feel like it's got sand running through it, kind of thing, and I'll feel very heavy, and I'll think to myself, you know what? We should go for a walk, or we should go for a run, or we should go for a bike ride, and we should move the body. But the truth is my body's exhausted, and I sit there and I have to actually really feel into it and say, or do you need a bath? Like, do you need an Epsom salts bath? Is that what your body actually needs to release something? And it's a fascinating thing, especially if you are, it's like you have to look at your habits. Are you naturally a driver, that you just drive your body into all kinds of things? Then there's a chance that it's actually rest your body needs. If you default to rest, it could be that there's so much inertia built up that it actually, the best thing to do is to walk around the block, right? So it's a very gentle game. It's kind of that know thyself, with a very loving heart. This is the answer. One of the great things about change is that change allows us to leave bad situations behind us. And that can be anything, right? It could be a relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship and you've always been taught, or you've always learned in your life, for good reason, that it's kind of best to just fly under the radar. Don't, quote, cause any problems. You're not causing any problems, but that's how we think. And it's like, I don't want to upset anybody, and I don't want to be seen as being difficult. So we end up staying in relationships that really are not healthy for us or anyone around us. So what if one day you said, I'm just going to be honest from now on. I'm not going to be a jerk, and I'm not going to yell at people, whatever. But if someone asks, I'm going to be honest. Well, how are you doing? I'm actually really struggling right now because I really want to talk to you about this topic, and we're having a hard time getting there. And the other person blows up and freaks out and gets all defensive or whatever. And you're just like, well, you can do that, but I actually just really want to talk about this. That tiny change changes everything, right? It's almost like as soon as we shift the tiniest thing, the people around us, their behaviors will change. Maybe the person who's actually gaslighting you, or actually is maybe having narcissistic tendencies, as soon as you stop playing and you start just being honest, their activity starts to amp up. Like, it's almost like they can't pretend that they're the innocent one here, because they're literally losing their mind. And all you did was say, no, this is really important to me. I really want to talk about it. That's all you did. You didn't attack them. You didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, they freak out. They get mad. They slam the door. They do something. And you're sitting there going, well, that was interesting. And then everything's a little bit clearer. And then maybe someone else calls and they say something and you're honest with them, and then that changes. And then bit by bit, a year later, you find yourself living in your own apartment and you're not quite sure how you even got there, because a million weird little dials turned because you made this one change, because your goal became peace or happiness or the freedom to expand. Sometimes we have eating patterns that were developed at very specific times of our life. For me, when I married the farmer, I was very isolated on the farm, and we worked like crazy. My children, I had children, I had foster kids. It was a very difficult time, and food became my sucre. You know, a caramel bar never let me down, right? Well, you can develop a lot of weird habits in times of stress. You know, you can develop a lot of habits that maybe do truly save you in those times, like truly keep you okay. Do you know what I mean? This is not a judgment of where the habits came from. But then at some point, we look at our lives and say, well, I'm not there anymore. Do these habits even fit that life, this life now? Because sometimes even our habits will bring with it a consciousness of a previous traumatic time. So we start to make easy, long-term changes. Like we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just do gentle things, very gentle. And then all of a sudden, slowly, we also release all the traumas and the memories and things from that time. And we start to feel differently. Because what's interesting is a lot of these old habits, and they could be sleep, they could be movement, and the thing is, like, it's interesting, the things we're talking about, right? These are really basic: food, movement, sleep, how we think. These are the things we have control over. These are the things we can change. And weirdly, these four seemingly like the foundational parts of our life, these tiny things, you change any one of those four things and they instantly change the other three. And then that starts to change our entire life. You know, sometimes it's like we're looking for this huge, big change to come in that's really deep and profound. And it's like, no, just stop eating before bed. You know, most of the time. Again, we don't have to be crazy strict about everything. We just have to make small changes. There's another really interesting aspect of change. And I can't remember who it was that I was reading, but they were talking about how life is always changing. The world is always shifting. The stars are always in a different position. Our consciousness, especially in this year of 2024, our consciousness, every one of us, is shifting so quickly. Change means we're keeping up with current reality. You know, if we really want to suffer, hold on tight to who we were 5 years ago. Hold on tight. Don't let anything change. And the suffering we will experience because the world has changed. The people around us has changed. We actually have changed. But our mental attachments to whatever, how we see the world, how we eat, how we move, all these things, we are so attached to these old habits. We aren't in the new place. You know, and it's kind of like, imagine you're traveling through Europe and you just spent, you know, a beautiful month in Holland and you love tulips. Oh, you love tulips. Like I just want to sit in the tulip fields all day long. That's what I want. I just want to eat stroopwafel and I want to sit in the tulips and I want to say gezellig and I want to say all these wonderful things. That's what I want. But then the tour bus continued. And now you're in Hungary. And you're like, but where are the tulips? I want tulips. It's like, but you're not in Holland anymore. I don't care. I want tulips. Like, that's what it's like when we hold on tight to something from the past, because the world has moved on. You know, and even ourselves. And this can cause incredible confusion inside of us, right? We literally inside of us go, I don't even feel like I belong here anymore. I don't get people. I don't understand the world. And it's like, we have to listen within. Our intuition is connected to the whole. Our intuition is in this moment. So the question is, when I sit in this meditation, this is why sitting in meditation, just silent meditation for 10 minutes, even if you think you're terrible at it, and you just sit there and you just simply come into this moment. You let go of the past, you let go of the future, and you just sit in this moment. And it's almost like connecting to the heartbeat of the earth today, May 14th, 2024. What is the spirit of today? What is the true assessment of my relationships? Do I still love my job? Do I still love my patterns? Do these patterns still fit with my current consciousness? Do they fit? Like, I noticed something really weird, and I normally don't feel any connection with the stars, the moon, all that. I don't, lots of people do, but I just assumed I wasn't sensitive that way or something. But ever since this past eclipse, and whether it was the eclipse and it was Jupiter and Uranus or whatever, all the changes were in the sky, I'm not good enough at astrology to say it properly. It's like my body wants to eat differently. And if I keep eating the way I used to eat, I kind of just don't feel good. And it wants to eat way less. Well, what if that's where humanity's going? That we're actually requiring less food. And I'm just making this up. I don't know if this is true. But what if we are moving into a lighter consciousness? Literally, we are all becoming enlightened into a lighter consciousness where we are able to fuel our body on prana. And we're moving away from our requirement to actually feed the body with gross material. Not gross, but gross physical. What if? But we're ignoring it. And we're just continuing on and eating how we always ate and moving how we always moved and doing all the things. It's like, but is that current? And you don't have to be psychic or intuitive to figure this out. You literally just have to connect with Shakti. You just have to connect with your body, your feelings, your emotions, everything, and sit there and say, like, what I do is I kind of sit and I have a little game inside of me and I say, would this feel good? And I kind of feel it in my body. Does my body say, ooh, or does it go, ugh? Or does this feel good? Does this feel good? And I just start rhyming ideas until something lands in my consciousness as current and true. What's really cool about this is it means we're alive. And life is exciting, right? That we actually get to see things with new eyes, new experiences. The process of intuition or prayer to actually ask for what we desire, name our trajectory, name our intention, listen, what is the next step? Literally close your eyes and ask, what is my next step? What is the next forever change I can make that's going to bring me closer to me, closer to my truth, my true self? And then we act on it. And the acting is really interesting because very often we have heard the message. But when we act on it, that changes everything. This is the true leap of faith, right? This, in my life and how I see it, this is the true adrenaline of life. It's where you kind of, the thing you're going to do, and it can be something as boring as drinking more water. Like, it doesn't have to be whatever. It could be signing up for a running group. It could be signing up for an art group. It could be doing anything that's a little edgy. And by edgy, I mean at your growth edge. This is how we're designed. Human beings love to grow. We love to expand. We love to discard the old. We love to keep expanding. We talk about feeling eternally youthful. Then we perpetually grow. We grow, we expand, we play at our growth edge, and we do new things. This is what makes life really, really exciting. And to keep it really grounded, when we change these parts of ourselves, how we eat, how we sleep, how we move, all these things, how we handle stress, it changes everything. And like, just let's imagine for a moment, you know, let's say you've always struggled with sore knees. That's a big thing, right? Something I definitely relate to. You know, imagine you said to yourself, you know what? I am going to, okay, hold on. First, let's imagine you have sore knees and you go on a beautiful trip to Rome. Well, if you've ever been to Rome, walking through the streets of Rome is like walking through another dimension. It's one of my absolutely favorite places to go. It's just, you literally are, it's like you're Jack and the Beanstalk walking through the land of the giants. It's off the charts. And in places, there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of stairs. And if you've ever had sore knees or a sore back or sore hips or anything, the very sight of a set of stairs going up or down fill you with dread. Like you're just like, oh God. And then what do you say? You know what? I'll just wait here. You guys go do that. I'll just get a coffee and I'll just sit here and wait for you. And that becomes your experience, you know, seeing the stairs or seeing whatever. But imagine instead you said to yourself, you know what? I'm going to create a little project, or I'm going to do whatever I can to heal my knees. And you start Googling, and I mean, you can find the most amazing things on YouTube and Insight Timer and all kinds of great places to slowly heal the knees. And maybe you look up diet changes, and you look up this, and you look up cool arnica creams, and you look up this, and you look up that. And then you say, wow, this is really cool. And then a year later, you go on a trip to Rome. And suddenly you're walking around and you see those stairs and you're like, I'm going to go up those stairs. There is nothing like walking upstairs easily after you've had injury or after you've had struggle. And this can be anything. You change your sleep, you change your eating, you change your stress levels, all these things, you will have the energy to climb the stairs. You'll have the energy. Let's say you go to Scotland and you want to go up into all the castles, right? Lots of stairs, very cool vistas up at the top. Maybe you want to go to Switzerland and you want to hike in the mountains. Having the energy to do these things changes everything. All we need to do is be willing to step into a new life and to believe that healing's possible and to believe that I actually can move closer to who I truly am. The last thing I want to mention is the idea that today is a new day. Right? Every day we wake up is a brand new day. Then we have to ask ourselves, or is it a brand new day? Or do I actually have full intention of repeating yesterday, today? I fully intend to eat the same, move the same, think the same, act the same, do the exact same routine every day. Is that my intention? Is today a new day? Because what's cool is, and again, you're like, oh yeah, but you don't know. I mean, I've got this long commute and then I've got to work 8 hours, then I come home and then I've got, the kids have a million things booked and blah, 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 blah. So maybe the one new thing about today is you listen to an audiobook in the car on the way. Or maybe you decide, you know what? I'm going to use my commute on the train to learn Italian. And I'm going to buy an app that teaches you Italian. I use this really cool app called, there's Duolingo and the free stuff, but there was one, oh shoot, I can't remember what it was called. It'll come to me in a minute. But it was really cool because it taught you these languages orally. Like it's not like you learned the conjugations. They actually led you through conversations and then kind of pulled them apart. It was really cool. So you could actually just listen to them while you were traveling and practice. It was very cool. What if that's the one change you made? That today I'm going to learn a language on my way to work and back, right? Or just on my way to work or whatever. Or maybe the one change I'm going to make is, you know what? I have actually been pretty tired when I'm waking up in the morning. I'm just going to go to bed 15 minutes earlier. 15 minutes, right? Can you imagine your life if you made one tiny change every day? Nothing monstrous. Like maybe there's just that table in the corner that has a pile of stuff on it. And one day you look at it and you say, you know what? I'm going to clear that table off. And if you're like me, every time you walk by that clear table, it's like you just take a deep breath. You know? And maybe one day you go through your clothes and you say, you know, I haven't worn this in years. Or I have all these clothes I'm saving for when I'm skinny again. Or something, right? And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to celebrate who I am every day. You imagine how exciting life is? You imagine like every day, you have 365 days in a year that you get to try something new, something tiny and new. You know, there's something that makes you feel so alive. It's so exciting. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day.